Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 369 of the All Dolphins podcast for this Wednesday, September 25th, 2024. Getting my days mixed up. It's a weird Wednesday because it's a no media availability, no practice for the Dolphins because the entire schedule has been pushed back a week, but there's still plenty to talk about. Maybe the quarterback situation might be a topic we want to address. And here to do that is Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun Sentinel, the host of the Dolphins Deep Dive podcast. You can find his work at sunsentinel.com. Perk, how are you, bud?
I'm good, Poop. I even have some good news for Dolphins fans. I'm positive, upbeat stuff. I do. Seriously, I really
They're
do.
not losing Sunday. That's your positive news?
That's, no, that's not. That's not. Although that is fact. That is fact.
There you go. I can guarantee you the Dolphins will not lose on Sunday. How's that?
That's right.
Okay. Okay. Well, no. I mean, don't keep me in suspense. You know the old joke, right? You know how to keep somebody in suspense, or I don't know how do you keep them more on the suspense. I'll tell you tomorrow. No, you can't. You can't do that. Go ahead. Share the good news.
Okay, here's the good news. I'm picking Dolphins to win 31-23. And I don't know what's more shocking, that I pick them to win or that they score 31. But look, Poop, there is a path forward here. And listen, Dolphins fans, they have a lot of freaking talent on this roster. You still have Tyreek. You still have Waddle. You got Jonnu. You got Jalen Wright. You got Devon Achane. I know that Teron is in concussion protocol. I know that Raheem has missed the last couple of games. But you do still have Jalen Ramsey. You got Zach Sealer. You got Jordan Poyer. You got Javon Holland. Make some freaking plays. Like, devise a game plan that takes advantage of what you do well and hides what you don't do so well, Mike McDaniel. And let's get this thing back on track. You've got enough talent. Figure out ways to get Tyreek and Jalen Waddle the ball. And here's my first suggestion. Rely on your running game and your tight ends to set up the pass over the top to Tyreek and Jalen. Let's not use the same game plan for Skyler and for Snoop Huntley and for Tim Boyle that you use for Tua. Be smarter than that, Mike McDaniel. So there is a way forward, but it requires Mike McDaniel to kind of do some introspection and figure out what works, what doesn't work, and use all this talent on your roster.
Damn. Okay, that's it. Great show, guys. Dolphins.
That's it. There's a way forward. You can win.
Sure, you can win. First of all, okay. But then if it was as simple as tweaking the game plan, why wasn't that done against Seattle, where the Dolphins not only didn't win, they didn't come close to winning, and again, they looked non-competitive, as well as the defense played in the second half for the most part. Again, in the first quarter, it's 151 yards and 17 points. So the defense didn't show up at the start. This defense that supposedly has a lot of talent with no injuries on it, mind you. Okay, technically Cam Smith and Patton Morris are on IR, but they're not necessarily contributing. I'm being a smart ass here. So again, this is like, and yeah, I'm trying to find, I was a lot more positive heading into the game on Sunday, which was another massive downer because there was and again, I was expecting this is where the defense need to come up and make plays early on, when it's 17-3 already and the Dolphins are doing nothing but play catch up. It's like, okay. But they do have the opportunity because Tennessee is very error prone. Will Levis is a turnover machine. The right tackle, if you haven't seen the meme on social media yet, look it up. It's Nicholas Petitfrere, PETIT-FRERE. Look it up. There's a play where he gets abused worse than I've ever seen an offensive lineman get abused. It's borderline funny, but it's not funny for the dude. So there is some hope there. But is it an automatic they're going to get it done?
Well, Poop, here's the deal. I keep going to the offense for the problems with this team. A lot of people will point to defense and Danny Crossman. Look, here's the reality of the situation. Now, your defense gave up the two big plays to DK Metcalf, both when Jalen Ramsey was not defending them. I don't know what the deal was. It looked like Javon Holland kind of bit on that 71-yard touchdown.
Sorry. He didn't kind of
Yeah.
bid on it. He completely bid on it.
Yeah, so you had that, and then the 21-yard pass was kind of a broken pass. Kendall Fuller was guarding DK, and Geno Smith found him. But I think Jalen Ramsey did a very good job on him for the most part. So your defense played a decent game, but Poop, you're an offensive team. You can't be inside the 6-yard line twice and just come away with a field goal. That just cannot happen. And so, I do turn to the offense. Like, you've got to have a better offensive game plan. Now, the first time down there, I haven't finished watching the All-22, the game film, what they call the coaches film. It's not the TV version. I think everybody watching probably knows what the All-22 is. But the first down run that they tried after the Kohu interception, right? Devon Achane had a hole. He slipped making the cut. But the hole was there, so you blew that one. But my thing is, why couldn't you try it again? Just keep pounding. You're at the 6-yard line. I don't know about the throw here. And here's the other thing, Poop. If I'm not mistaken, Jonnu Smith wasn't in for a single play on that whole goal line stand, which kind of mystifies me, which I got to ask Frank Smith about tomorrow. Isn't this one of the major reasons why you got the guy? And Julian Hill, 4 penalties?
Hold on. There's a flag coming.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, 4 penalties.
Yeah. Right. And so
that's why I was doing flag coming.
Okay. I thought you meant of something I was saying. It was indirectly. Yeah, but I go back. I like that. There we go, baby. There we go. I go back to the offense though, and why isn't Jonnu in there, and why can't you pound it in? I know you can't pound it in because you cut Chris Brooks and you have no muscle, but you've got to do something. The Durham Smythe throw, that play has got to be made. It wasn't a bad throw, but shouldn't you be throwing to Jonnu? I look at the offense and the game plan that there's a way forward, Poop. You just got to kind of tweak what you're doing offensively. The defense gave you a chance, but the offense didn't take advantage.
Fair. But to me, again, and I haven't made my prediction yet because that will come out Sunday probably on MiamiDolphinsOnTheSide.com. That's a teaser right there. I have a hard time seeing the Dolphins go from 3 to 31 points, considering that Tennessee does not have a bad defense. Tennessee's problems the first 3 games of the season mostly has been turnovers. But their defense played fairly well in the opener against the Bears and pretty well against the Jets in week 2 as well. So it's not like the Dolphins are just going to just move up and down the field.
But the Titans are allowing 26 points per game.
They also had 2 pick sixes. That kind of does not help. And they also have like a league high 8 turnovers. So that plays a role in it.
Yep.
So having said all that, going back to your point, and my whole thing is, and this is where we go back to always be careful. And this is why I tend to poo-poo a lot of the stuff, the hyperbole that comes out in training camp, and I get killed for it. It's like, wait until the regular season starts. Wasn't Jonnu Smith supposed to revolutionize what Mike McDaniel did with this offense, adding a whole new dimension to it?
The F position.
Hey, thank you. Exactly. And I'm not, I think there's some Dolphin fans who would say F that position, really. See what I did there? Thank you. Actually, I cracked myself up. That was a good one.
You know what? I like it. That's why I'm on this podcast. I do like that. I appreciate that.
So again, I mean, it's like, get the dude involved. I mean, you brought him in for a reason, because it's not like the Dolphins have a great wide receiver 3 here. And this is why I wrote about this on Miami Dolphins on SI, MiamiDolphinsSI.com. Part of a story on the fact that Dolphins are getting nothing out of their draft picks, and I kind of broke it down. They chose Chop Robinson with the 21st overall pick. Nothing wrong with that pick on the surface, but is he making much of an impact right now? No, he's a part-time player on defense. Doesn't have a sack, doesn't have a tackle for loss, and he has shown flashes. The guy picked 2 spots after him. Don't think he would look good as a Dolphins wide receiver 3 right now. That's Brian Thomas Jr., who's the guy supposedly the Dolphins have their eye on. Because right now there is nobody at wide receiver 3.
Yeah. And look, Poop, goes back to everything that we're talking about, goes back to coaching and roster construction, right? And the philosophy slash strategy, because they keep going for speed, speed, speed. This is a violent, aggressive sport, and you don't have that element on your roster hardly at all. That's a flaw in the construction of the roster. That's a flaw in the strategy and philosophy of this team. Again, there's still a way forward, but you got to be willing to change. And I wonder, Poop, like you've talked about this. I've talked about this. People in this building, in that building, have to recognize, okay, we can't keep going like this. And I wonder if anybody talks to Mike McDaniel about it, and if Mike McDaniel is receptive to that talk, because I got to say it just seems like he's being a little stubborn and resistant to change right now. Like, how can you not see that you need to tweak your game plan? You need to do things differently than you're doing them. And I just wonder if anybody is telling him that.
But this goes back to, again, the Dolphins have invested so heavily into their core guys of this track meet that they built, to what Tyreek, Jalen Waddle. And if you look at the offseason, that was a big commitment financially, along with Jalen Ramsey. Mm-hmm. And then the guys you lost, Christian Wilkins, Robert Hunt, whatever we want to say about positional value, those are two of the most physical guys. By the way, for those listening on the audio version, Quirk was pointing at his gigantic bicep over here. Those were two of the most physical guys on a team that's already lacking physicality. So it skewed even more towards finesse versus toughness. And again, there's a reason the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm just using them as an example, there's a reason the Pittsburgh Steelers year in and year out are always good or competitive, is because more often than not, they're among the top 5 most physical teams in the NFL.
Baltimore, San Francisco, Philly.
And that thing wins. And this is where, and we're going to move on to topic number 2 here, is the quarterback. Are we both in agreement that it's kind of a given it's going to be Tyler Huntley at quarterback against Tennessee?
I don't know. It's not going to be Skylar Thompson. We know that. Tim Boyle has been here longer. I kind of liked what I saw from Tim Boyle, but you kind of need that extra element of Snoop Huntley's legs to give the defense something else to think about. And so from that standpoint, I would say yes, but I would just think that your offensive play package has got to be so limited with Snoop Huntley. I wonder how effective he can be.
Okay, let me backtrack for a second here. So we would provide the latest updates here as far as what we know is Skylar Thompson, per Mike McDaniel, is day-to-day with a rib injury. He took a nasty shot in the ribs. You saw him go off the field kind of very gingerly, hold it kind of like leaning toward the right side as it, ouch, my ribs hurt. Came back one play, was barely shoved, and then he was done for the day. So obviously there's something major issue here. I'm no doctor, but if you said a broken rib or two, I'd say, yeah, I can see that. That being the case, that's a very painful injury. The odds that he practices, probably not good. And if he doesn't practice, do we want Skylar Thompson in the lineup after not practicing? Yeah, I'm thinking no. If you have Tim Boyle in there, we saw Tim Boyle last year with the Jets behind a shaky offensive line. And the Dolphins right now, sadly, have a shaky offensive line. Yep. And we saw that. And it doesn't help that Skylar's decision-making in the pocket was low. But Tim Boyle, under the same circumstances with the Jets last year, it wasn't that much better. So this is why I think Ricky Huntley. I'm thinking Arizona Wildcats way back when he was an edge defender, really good pass rusher.
Yes.
But I digress. Tyler Huntley can run around and he can escape some of the pressure. But based on his career resume, he is not necessarily what you would call an accomplished passer.
Right.
This is something Dolphin fans have to understand. Okay, and he can move around a little bit. He's not Lamar Jackson in his mobility, but he can move around. In fact, I was thinking about this. He might be the most mobile quarterback the Dolphins have had since Pat White, maybe.
Yeah. Yep. The Dolphins don't go this direction. But Poop, let me say this though, finish your thought. Finish your thought.
What makes you think I wasn't done? um, so my thought was that, yeah, I can see Tyler Huntley being able to run the offense, be able to make some plays with his feet, but for a whole game and how successful that can be, I'm concerned about that. While understanding he's still maybe a better option than Tim Boyle, because I can see Tim Boyle starting and getting sacked 7 times.
I could see them both playing, Poop. I could see Tim Boyle starting and Tyler Huntley kind of being the change of pace, and you just kind of figure this thing out over the next couple of weeks. Because I just don't think that either of them is adequate. Neither of them has been in this system long. Now, Tim Boyle does come with the LaFleur recommendation, right? So he's kind of been in this system. So I would think his familiarity, both overall and short term, being with the Dolphins, would be greater than Snoop Huntley's familiarity. Having said all of that, Poop, how the heck are we in this position in week 4? Okay, so, look, viewers, you remember they had this whole offseason to get this right. Your backup quarterback position. You know Skylar Thompson better than anybody in the NFL. You've had him his entire career. How did you mess this up so badly? Like, I'm going to try to be calm here. Okay, you had an entire offseason. Yeah, you had an entire offseason to find the best backup quarterback to Tua, knowing that Tua doesn't stay healthy. You knew this. So you have 2 guys in here. You make a big deal about this quarterback competition in training camp. We're putting them in stressful positions. Okay, the first stressful position that comes up, your man fails badly. How did you not know this? Like, this is insane. This is insanity. Like, this is the most important position in your offense. How do you mess it up this badly? How did you not keep Mike White around? What are we doing here? I mean, I'm sorry. I like Skylar. I don't put this.
Sorry.
I don't put a lot of this on Skylar. Skylar wet the bed, yes, but he's almost set up to fail. Like, I just don't get how you could mess it up from the play calling, from the preparation, from the knowledge of personnel. Like, how do you screw it up so badly this quickly?
No, this is where I'm going to point out that based on the comments we've gotten in the past, the viewers like pissed off Perk. So you do not apologize, and you go, you do your thing. Yeah, no, it's a massive indictment. I wrote about this, I think it was Thursday or Friday, about how this 4-game stretch without Tua was going to be a referendum in how the Dolphins manage the offseason. And I don't want to overreact, but I mean, F minus if possible, because it was basically status quo. Let's sign up from not only status quo. Let's sign up for more. Their offensive linemen, the interior offensive line. Well, Robert Hunt is too expensive for a guard. Okay, fine, but then we're going to keep all the other guys. And then the rationale when we asked Mike McDaniel is, well, all those guys want to improve, and we're familiar with them, or Frank Smith, one of the two, or both. Was basically the message we got.
Right.
Wow, that's great. I want to learn and I want to improve, and I'm a good guy too. Does that mean I can play right guard?
Right.
No. And then with the backup quarterback situation, it was the same. We have 2 guys we know we're comfortable with.
Yep.
And then you make the decision based on what it wasn't based on what we saw in our regular season game last year, because Skylar Thompson didn't take a snap. Right. So you decided, after admittedly saying you put them all in adverse circumstances, that Skylar would be better equipped to handle it. And to me, the most disturbing thing of all, it wasn't so much like his numbers, whatever, I don't care, or if he'd missed throws, the accuracy was way off, is he looked overwhelmed in the pocket, like out of his element, like he was a high school quarterback all of a sudden playing against college players. I mean, it was rough. And that, to me, I mean, Robinson alert. If you remember the whole, man, my references are old. I apologize. I'm old, so it's going to happen. The references are
lost in space, right?
Lost in space. Very good. But that was completely alarming. And it's like, does he ever even get a second start with the Dolphins?
And that's a great question, Poop, because I've wondered that. And so here's where I'm at with that. you've almost got to give him another chance, right? That like I know, and let's set aside the indictment, the further indictment it would be on Mike McDaniel and his judgment if you don't give him a second chance. But isn't there a chance, to be fair to Skyler, that this is his first start in over a year? Like his last start was that Buffalo playoff game. And yeah, you're going to have jitters. That's a high stress situation. I know that's your job. You're like a relief pitcher, right? You can't say, well, it was stressful. That's your job. You put out the fire. That's your job. But boy, you're on the road, and you're just asking a lot of Skyler. And maybe he clearly was overwhelmed, but maybe it's just jitters. Maybe he settles down next time. I know he looked bad, but Poop,
if it's jitters, sorry, get him out of there. You're an NFL player. He was a starter in college. To me, again, it was like not seeing things on the field, which is
you're right, but I just can't believe that they were so wrong about this situation that after basically 3 quarters, you're pulling the plug on this and saying we can't go with this guy. It's like you believed in him for over a year, like you built him, like your coaching and your player development, and now you're just going to throw it out over 3 bad quarters and a broken rib. Like you almost got to give this guy another shot, don't you? I know it's stressful times and you've got to, but Poop, don't you?
I have no problem with that argument, but I would think he would have a fairly quick hook. Like if you show the lack of poise in the pocket early on, if he gets another start, I think you got to yank him, and it's sorry that we completely messed up. Because again, what we saw was just flat out not acceptable. And I think this is kind of like an aside to it. Mike McDaniel's got to do a better job with the decision making. Like attempting a 57-yard field goal on 4th and 1 from the 39 in the first drive of the game. I'm sorry. There's just no justification for that. Having Skyler go ahead and try to see if we can draw a DPI on the last play of the half from the Seattle 49 instead of just chucking in the end zone. And I don't know, put Eric Ezukama on the field for once. He's 6'2". Maybe he can win a jump ball. Get your tight ends in there. Maybe they can win a jump ball as opposed to praying for a defensive stupidity like they got from the Chargers in week 1 last year. So there were a couple of decisions there that completely made no sense to me. So
I mean, you're having Skylar Thompson, who didn't play last year, throw to Tanner Connor, who didn't play last year. Like, what are we doing here? Like, there's not a better plan B. Like, I know there's no Tua, and they've taken away Tyreek and Waddle, but there's got to be a better plan B than Skylar to Tanner Connor deep.
Really? No, sorry. Whoops. Here's another question. There are a couple of questions I would have. And again, for those who are wondering, like those questions you have, why don't you ask Mike McDaniel? Well, because we're not necessarily going to get the clear answers. Like, for example, one clear question that we would ask, but what would you expect the Dolphins to say is, why did you not have a better plan at backup quarterback heading into the 2024 season? McDaniel actually was asked in a roundabout kind of way, which was basically before, it may have been you who asked, before his first start, what gives you confidence? No, I think it was Omar. What gives you confidence that he can win games? And it went back to what he's done behind the scenes.
Right.
But where's the cheat motion, for example?
Yeah.
Jalen Wright had 17 yards on 2 carries, 9 yards on 8 yards. Why did he not get a third carry? It clearly wasn't working with Devon Achane, who was at 11 for 30. Mm-hmm. So there are things that are kind of weird as far as Tyreek not getting any more looks or Jalen Waddle. I'm going to take a mea culpa here. I have not seen the all 22. There are some people out there suggesting there were plays where Tyreek was open and Skyler flat out didn't see him.
That's true.
Okay. And this is like not seeing the field and, slow processing time. That's part of playing the position. This is what Tua has over the other Dolphin quarterbacks, and by a long shot. But this is, while, Yes, this game on the Sunday showed the value of Tua running this offense, but I don't care who it is. There cannot be this kind of drop off. This was as much,
Right.
more so a statement of where the Dolphins have left themselves at the number 2 QB position than a statement on just how good Tua is. And Tua is very, very good in this offense.
Yeah, and Poop, it's not so much a statement on the number 2 quarterback. It's an indictment on McDaniel and the way this team is built and operated. Because look, when Nick Foles comes in, he doesn't have these issues, right? Like you've got an entire team around him. And I'm not taking any, I got to say this right up front. I'm not taking anything from Brock Purdy. But when he comes in, he's got Trent Williams and George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel and Fred Warner and who's the safety, Hufanga. And like you've got all these other people around to help lighten the load. The Dolphins aren't built like that. They should be built like that. And this is where I will fault them. The offense isn't built like that. It's built for Tua to Tyreek, Tua to Waddle. And if people stop that, you've got nothing else. And so that's where you're at right now. That why couldn't they see this, Poop? Like anybody could see this. If I'm not mistaken, in 2022, they're 2-6 against playoff teams, and I think they average like 23 points per game. Last year, you fall to 1-6 against playoff teams, 16 points per game. I think somebody's figuring you out. I think somebody's figuring out what you do. So what's your counterpunch? And the fact that you don't have one is a flaw in your strategy and a flaw in your philosophy. Correct that.
And here's the other like very salient point here that needs to be raised. How much of the Seattle debacle was Skylar looking so bad? How much of it was it just merely a continuation of opposing defenses having figured out and mastered the Dolphins, and they were going to be stifled regardless,
Right.
Even if Tua had played, it was just a higher degree because Skylar is not a great number 2 quarterback.
That's it 100%, Poop. You hit the nail on the head right there. My 5 things to watch pregame, I said, mark my words, they're going to shut down Tyreek number 1 and Jalen Waddle number 2. And what are the Dolphins going to do? Like, Tennessee is going to do the same thing on Monday night, okay? Here's a news flash. They're going to do the same thing. You better have an answer. You better know how to get Jalen Wright running between the tackles. You better know how to get Devon Achane out there in space. You better know how to get the ball to Durham Smythe and Jonnu Smith and Julian Hill and Braxton Berrios, right? And then you soften up the Titans and you go over the top for Tyreek or Jalen, but you're not going to be able to feast on Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. Teams are cutting that off. And if they aren't prepared for this, it's all on Mike McDaniel and the game plan. You've got to be aware of this.
And teams are also kind of choking off those outside runs where the numbers are not quite as good as they have been.
Yep.
So it's a combination of factors. And the problem is you just mentioned, like, to loosen up the defense, and then you throw out like Braxton Berrios, Julian Hill, and Durham Smythe and all that. And I'm thinking, no offense, but who in that group really scares you and is going to be able to do that consistently enough to where the defense, has to account for them more and to free up Tyreek and Jalen Waddle.
Yeah.
And this is where we can go back to the old discussion of how wise, and this is after the fact because it's already done, but how wise was it to spend so much money on your wide receivers, your quarterback, and your cornerback, which are skilled positions, as opposed to the big uglies. And like, for example, no team spends more on the wide receiver position than the Dolphins, who have zero depth there.
Right. And now you can't even get them the ball. And that's a major issue. But again, I'm not all doom and gloom because look, this is a defense that, and by the way, let's talk about the defense and Anthony Weaver.
You don't dictate what we talk about on the other. I'm sorry, go ahead.
We did see the 3 safety look briefly with Marcus May. I'm going to talk about defensive variety. We did see Jalen Phillips flip sides, right? We've seen Jalen Ramsey being used as a chess piece, shadowing DK Metcalf. We're not seeing the sacks. That's a downer. But, the defense, they produced 2 turnovers. 3, yeah, you're right. They did. And Deshaun Hand played a pretty nice game, by the way. Yeah. So there's encouraging things. They got you 2 turnovers. They got you the ball in positions where you should have scored touchdowns. So that's a way to win, a way to stay in the game. Again, Jalen Wright running between the tackles. That's a way to stay afloat and lead you to other things, open up other things. I'm not sure that's going to win you the game, but that could be part of the winning equation. You've got to think of different ways to win here. And look, you might need a Jason Sanders 50-yard field goal to win. I don't care. Whatever. Stay in the game and give yourself a chance at the end. Don't do all of this same old. We're going to try to get it to Tyreek and to Jalen. Do other things. This team has other talent. Play some 8-man fronts. Some creative blitzes. We saw a couple of twists and stunts. There's things that this defense can do. This is a defense that, Poop, if I'm not mistaken, they had 3 straight games last year where they scored a touchdown, right? Including that Philly game, I think, with the Jerome Baker touchdown. I think there was a streak of 3 straight games where they scored a touchdown. I have to go back and look. But anyway, this defense can do things. And so allow them to do things. But offense, when Zach Sealer and Kader Kohu get you the ball right there, you've got to score some freaking touchdowns, and this goes back to Mike McDaniel. But there is a way forward for this team.
No, there is, and it comes. I haven't minded the way the defense has looked. But usually it's been like one really bad play,
right?
Every game it seems. And against Jacksonville is a long DPI against Jalen Ramsey. Against Buffalo is a touchdown run. Yep. Where who was it? David Long got caught behind 3 defenders while James Cook is running right by him. And of course, there was Javon Holland biting on the long Metcalf play.
Yep.
If those can be cut off, eliminated, I think the defense is fine. To me, the key to this Tennessee game is the pass rush has to dominate. And not just a little bit, because there are injury concerns in the secondary. Storm Duck has a shoulder injury, left the game early. Kendall Fuller's in the concussion protocol. Don't know what his status is for the game against the Titans on Monday night. And then Tennessee's going to come in with Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, and Tyler Boyd as their 3 wide receivers, which I would say put them in the top 5 in terms of wide receiver trios. We were having this conversation in the media room. Seattle's pretty damn good as a trio, and Houston's also really good with Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Stephon Diggs. But Tennessee is up there, and I don't need to remind Dolphin fans the troubles the secondary had, especially with those crossing routes, crossers. Man, the word that came to define that game, that Monday night game. So if the Dolphin pass rush doesn't get to Will Levis, it could be a difficult night on defense. If the Dolphins do get pressure on Will Levis, they can get some sacks. And who knows, they might be able to be the one team with some success in forcing turnovers from him because he's so careful with the ball. Oh, wait, it's a nice thing. I think he's a turnover machine. So that's the key to me. I'm at a point right now where I have gone into the category of I'm a skeptic about the offense until I see evidence to give me any sort of confidence. Because right now, again, this was a flailing offense before 2 got injured. You can excuse somewhat the end of the Buffalo game after Tua left because you lost your quarterback, and then you have a mid-game QB change. But with Skylar Thompson, it was just rough. And again, Tyler Huntley brings a new element that he's going to make some plays with his legs, but that's not sustainable for a whole game unless he rushes for 150 yards, and then he's going to put himself in jeopardy at some point.
Yeah, and Poop, let me say this, that, I think that we and Mike McDaniel have to look at this game and this stretch differently from the standpoint it can't be all about quarterback, because you don't have an answer at quarterback. And let's be honest, Tua wasn't playing that well this season. He was off to it. He wasn't that great against Jacksonville. He had 2 long passes. He definitely wasn't that great against Buffalo. And so you haven't had good quarterback play this season yet. I know it was very early. I'm not judging Tua by that, but you've got to figure out other ways to win. And you did it against Jacksonville. Granted, you did it on the strength of the big play, but that's kind of, you got to be your formula that maybe we can get a big play, but we've got to figure out ways, survive. And then maybe it is that Jason Sanders 50-yard field goal at the buzzer, but you've got to figure out ways to survive. As you said, part of that is going to be putting pressure on Will Levis. Part of that is going to be the overall defense. Part of that is going to be the run game, throwing to the tight end, all of this stuff. Be scrappy, be resourceful. But you can do this. They can do this. They really, really can. I think Buffalo is the only team with a winning record they play until Thanksgiving. Well, I say that, and it's 3 games in, a lot of 1 and 2 teams. Somebody else will have a winning record. But the point is, this is doable. If I think they can be like a game below 500 going into December, which, let's be realistic. I know that's not really promising, but let's be realistic. You don't have a whole lot out here, and December is brutal, but there's a way to stay afloat and to survive. And I surely hope that Mike McDaniel chooses that instead of doing what he's consistently done, which is still relying on the big pass play from Tua to Tyreek, which you don't have Tua, but to Tyreek and to Jalen Waddle. Like, that's not going to work. Okay, the Tennessee is going to shut down Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, and I hope, Mike McDaniel, you have a plan B.
Okay, this is what I want to point out. My biggest source of confidence right now, the Dolphins are in survival mode right now. Yeah. And my biggest reason for confidence is the schedule, because they're playing Tennessee, and then they got at New England, which is really not a good team, and then they have the bye, and then they're at Indianapolis.
Yeah.
So that's, again, the schedule sets up. And then as far as the quote-unquote brutal schedule at the end of the year, well, Cleveland no longer looks like it's going to be a major task, because Deshaun Watson can't figure out how to play quarterback again like he did in Houston. And Myles Garrett's got bad feet that may require surgery at some point. Who knows if he's going to be there in week 17. And the 49ers have injuries up the wazoo. With some key guys, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle didn't play last Sunday, Deebo Samuel's on the shelf. And then their defense is not quite as good as it was last year. They lost Javon Hargrave for the year. So the San Francisco game, not quite as challenging, even though it still figures to be that way. So it's a brutal schedule heading into the season, but those things change. What hasn't changed is, it's this stretch here, because none of the next 3 opponents are even as good as we thought they might be, especially Indianapolis. I saw some really good things from Anthony Richardson last year. I thought his biggest issue was going to be staying healthy. He's flopping the ball all over the place. Will Levis last year impressed the hell out of me. Certainly in this game here, there were a couple of other games that I saw him play was like, that guy's got something, except he's incredibly loose with the ball. And the Patriots, after that, again, ask me how the hell they beat Cincinnati. I'll never know. But they look bad against the Jets, like really, really bad. So that's the source of confidence for me right now, is this upcoming schedule.
And Poop, I always say, look inward, look at your team, not the schedule. Sure. and all of that. And you're exactly right, because the schedules, that strength of schedule thing, I don't think that it's applicable until December, when we kind of know what teams are. To me, the big concern here is home and road. If I'm not mistaken, the Dolphins, 7-13 on the road under Mike McDaniel, I think, including the 2 playoff losses. I think they're at like 35%. So, and I think 4 of the next 6 are on the road, whatever it is. So I'm not looking at the opponent. I'm looking at the situation. You've got to win these road games. You've got to.
They beat the crappy teams on the road. Like last year, they spanked the Jets. They spanked the Commanders on the road. And last year, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. If you look at their losses last year on the road, it's at Buffalo, at Philly, at KC. Well, KC was in Germany, right. At Baltimore, and then at KC in the playoffs. Those are all playoff opponents. So to me, it wasn't so much home or away as playing good teams.
Well, I agree with you. That was the case, and that's been the case. Their road schedule has been brutal under Mike McDaniel, absolutely brutal, and that's where most of their losses to playoff teams come. However, you did just slay an egg in Seattle, and I'm not convinced that this is a good road team. I'm not convinced that this offense travels. So I know what you just said with Carolina and Washington, and yes, the bad teams, this offense does show up and they do drub teams. But I've still got to see that this year without Tua. I'm really more concerned about not the quality of the opponent, but and again they do play well at home. That's why I'm picking them to score 31. That's why I'm picking them to win. They play well at home. It's the road, and I'm worried more about the road than the road opponent. But if they do well on the road, I think they come out of this stretch in playoff contention going into December. That's what I think.
Except this is what I'm going to point out. They didn't play well at home against Jacksonville, and they didn't play well at home against Buffalo.
You're right. I know. You're right.
Okay. Because we don't like to leave trivia questions unanswered here, here's your answer, Perk. The Dolphins scored consecutive touchdowns in 3 games last year at the New York Jets.
That was it.
The Javon Holland Fail Mary.
Yep.
At Washington, the Andrew Van Ginkel pick 6. And versus Tennessee, the Zach Sealer touchdown.
Yeah. The Jets started it. Yeah. Yes, very, very nice. I thought there was a 3. I thought I knew that for a fact, but I was thinking Philly was involved, and then I was very confused. I couldn't name the games after that.
That's what we're here. That's what we're here for. We answer the questions that are brought up.
Like it.
Okay, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the All Dolphins podcast. As always, I want to thank Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Catch his work at sunsentinel.com, and as well as the Dolphins Deep Dive, usually with either Dave Hyde or David Feronis. Please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. We're going to be back on Thursday, which is going to be a Wednesday in terms of the Dolphins football schedule, where they'll be back to practice. We'll have the first injury report of the week, and maybe we'll have some clarity on who will be starting at quarterback for the game against the Titans on Monday night. Until then, thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.